Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Federico Talks Watches. Today, I'm once again answering some of your questions, such as, what's the rarest watch I've sold? And how is Ed Sheeran involved? And of course, why is vintage Vacheron so much cheaper than vintage Patek? All that and more in today's episode. Now, of course, before we get started, customary wristwatch check. Today I'm wearing my Piaget Polo 45 Flyback Chronograph GMT. Absolutely love this watch. Used to work for Piaget, brings back good memories. And also guys, don't forget to check out delraywatch.com. We got in some very cool watches, including this Grand Seiko Shunbun. Cheapest one in the United States, in fantastic condition, and boy, what a dial. We got in this Patek Midnight Vacheron dial, limited edition, 1 of 18, easily going to be one of the rarest watches I sell, and of course, super well priced as well. This is an absolute beauty. You guys know I love Vacheron dials, go check it out. And this Blancpain Lemon Flyback, solid rose gold, in-house movement, open case back, what's not to love, and for less than the price of a sub. Call me crazy, I think it's a steal. All at delraywatch.com, the best place for a watch geek to buy a watch. Link in the description below. Anyway, guys, these are some of the questions you asked me on my Instagram account at Federico Talks Watches. Few times a month, I put up a Q&A picture. When you see that picture, feel free to ask your questions. When I have enough questions, I take down the picture. Please do not DM me, as I do not check them. In no particular order, let's start with 42 watches. Hey Fed, what are your thoughts on Glycine? I have a couple of them that I purchased years ago. Many thanks. This is an interesting question. So Glycine is an entry-level automatic Swiss brand that many people like, especially for the price point. Their combat subs are pretty cool. They also have some aviation history watches. I actually quite like them. Now, the controversial part is Invicta. Yep, those Invicta. Yep, the garbage Invicta actually bought Glycine, the company, a few years ago. Now, that was not seen as a happy moment for Glycine fans, though I will tell you I haven't really noticed a drop-off in quality. Hopefully they're leaving Glycine alone and letting them do their own thing and they're just financially vested. But I don't think it's a good thing overall. However, I will say I do like Glycine, especially for the price. Fran Esposto. Hey Fed, do you have any watch releases from any brands you'd love to see this year? For example, Rolex bringing back a Coke. Yeah, I don't really care about Rolex bringing back a Coke. Now, if they brought back the Rolex Zerograph, I'd be really happy. But honestly, the one I really want to see is a new Patek World Timer. Discontinued again for some reason. I don't know why. It's such an iconic Patek Philippe complication. I'm dying to see a new one. Doing Time Scotland. What is the rarest watch you ever bought and sold, and were you tempted to keep it for yourself? Interesting question, because the rarest watch, which, is maybe not the rarest by amount made, but definitely the rarest to find, I actually bought and sold 3 of them. It was a Tudor, right? How's Tudor the rarest? Well, it was a Tudor made for Ed Sheeran's Divide tour. Now, these were not for sale to the public. I actually can't remember exactly how many were made, 30 or 50, but it was a Tudor Black Bay with Ed Sheeran's Divide tour logo on the dial that was only given to people who worked on the tour. Ed special ordered these from Tudor, and he gave them out to his tour members. They were never for sale. None of them have ever been for sale publicly until I got one. Obviously, during COVID, a lot of the roadies didn't have work, unfortunately, and I feel bad for them. And one of them called me to try and sell this watch. I had never heard about it before, did some research, I saw a news story, it was legit. He sent me proof that he worked for Ed Sheeran, the Divide tour. I saw a press release that Ed Sheeran had made these watches for the employees, so I bought it. Never seen it before, and I sold it. then, the music world is supposedly a small world. Well, it is, because then 2 weeks later, another roadie said, hey, my friend sold you this watch. Well, I worked security on the tour as well. I have another one that I want to sell. So I bought one from that guy, and then the chef called from the tour, and actually, so I ended up buying and selling 3 of them. As far as I know, I'm the only one to buy and sell them. I did see a couple of other dealers buy and sell them as well, but they were the same serial numbers I had. They didn't block out the serial numbers. Smart people. Well, smart is me being facetious. But yeah, so as far as I know, those 3 are the only one that have publicly been bought and sold. Have I ever wanted to keep it for myself? Not really. While I love the Tudor Black Bay GMT, I'm not an Ed Sheeran fan. Not that I dislike him, but certainly just not a fan boy of his music. So I'd rather just have the normal one and save the premium. But easily one of the rarest watches I've ever bought and sold, and I did it 3 times. But as I said, the Patek at the beginning of the video is going to be another one of the rarest. Thomas BB. Compared to other vintage watches, why are Vacheron Constantin seemingly so reasonably priced compared to Patek? This is a tough question, especially because I'm not a vintage watch expert, but I'll give it a whack, give you my 2 cents. Firstly, because Patek is Patek. Yes, Vacheron is part of the big 3, but Patek is the pinnacle, the most collectible, the most wanted, the most prestigious, bar none, apart from maybe Dufour, but let's not talk about the crazy independents. Patek is Patek, and that's great. Vacheron is not Patek. They're awesome, but they're definitely not Patek. So that's number 1. Number 2 is it seems Patek has cataloged their watches better than almost any other brand. They no longer do extract from the archives, but back when they did, it was an easy process. You called Patek Philippe, they give you all the info about your watch. You could kind of almost trace the history. Now, while I think Vacheron does or did offer a service like this, it was nowhere near as well known as the extract from the archives from Patek. Collectors almost didn't know you could do it. And there's less documentation and less public history of the vintage Vacheron Constantin models, especially because Vacheron Constantin has exchanged hands. It's now owned by Richemont. It used to be owned by a sheikh before that, and I think they were dormant for a while, whereas Patek has been kind of constant. So I think the fact that Patek is Patek and also Vacheron doesn't quite have the same archives, or at least access to the archives for the public as Patek does, is what helps Patek kind of be more expensive. Watches, I said Patek and Vacheron a lot in that little diatribe. I apologize for that. Watch and unwind. When does a watch become or earn the label high horology? This is interesting, and it's very subjective. Different people give different opinions, but in a nutshell for me, it's a mixture of these 2 things. First, an in-house movement or a very complicated modification to an ETA. I mean, I've seen like the IWC Da Vinci Perpetual Calendar Tourbillon in the 7750 or Perpetual Calendar, even the minute repeaters. I consider those high horology, but generally an in-house movement is needed. And then it goes to finishing, because while Tudor has an in-house movement, they're not high horology in my mind. After the in-house movement, it goes to finishing, especially some kind of hand finishing. How much handiwork instead of machine finishing was put in the movement. Now, for example, Moser, they're not entirely hand finished, not at all, but they're in-house and partially hand finished. I consider that high horology, especially their very high-end pieces. Lange, in-house and entirely hand-finished. Definitely high horology. IWC, they used, as I said, that 7750, no real hand finishing, but an extremely complication module that they invented. I consider that high horology. So there's not exactly one label, but it's a mixture of obviously the movement and complication and the level of detail and finishing that has gone into the movement, at least in my mind. Anyway, guys, that's it for today. Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. It really does help. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any more content. And of course, I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.